Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So today we're gonna do some tests with Stamina Templar. I'm using Maelstrom weapons because I kind of figured out you do slightly more damage with those. What we're gonna test is if it's worth to use Power of the Light or not in our rotation, because it slightly got buffed, but the question is it good enough? Also, keep in mind, it looks like I do not have a Mundus Stone, but I do have one. It's simply a visual bug for some reason. It bugged out on the PTS in this patch 3, so whatever. It's still here though, we have the extra crit. Now the first setup, the first set we're gonna try is without Power of the Light. Keep in mind there is no major fracture on this skeleton, so nobody's using Pierce Armor. But we all know these skeletons have 18k resistance, so it's totally fine. Remember, I have around 200 ping, so that's why the animations look that clunky, and that's why I also say on live server you probably have more DPS simply because your animations are smoother because you have a lower ping. Single target wise, I tested Velidref versus Krog, and it's almost the same damage numbers, but Velidref had 100-200 DPS less, so I really recommend using Krog on single target. Also because the one piece bonus of Krog gives us 2000 armor penetration, which is far more superior compared to the Velidref's 130 weapon damage. As always, the potions I use provide me with the Major Brutality and Major Savagery, and they also give me a lot of stamina. The reason why I have two fighter skilled abilities on the bar is because each of those give me 3% extra weapon damage, and I do have nothing else to slot there. On this part we have 33.2k DPS. Now keep in mind, you see my weapon critical average is 67.5, but overall, on this fight I only had overall 60% crits. So technically if I had my crit value that I have in the game, it probably would have even more DPS. Now let's get to the other one. The only thing that really changes here, I use Power of the Light. So I use one Rapid Strikes less in more or less each rotation. Again, keep in mind it's very laggy because the PTS server is located in the US and I'm playing from the EU, so I have around a 200 ping. Power of the Light now is kinda decent, especially if you use it in a group setup. It actually can be very powerful if you keep it on the boss all the time. Also, keep in mind the more stamina you have, the more damage will Power of the Light do. So for a red guard, Power of the Light will do more damage than, for example, with a sheet. Keep in mind the rotations are not even close to being optimized. Then also, you see, I always, before I weapon swap, I use Power of the Light. Now, it would of course be more optimal to keep Power of the Light on the boss or on the mob all the time, because it applies minor breach and minor fracture, decreasing the spell and armor resistance of the enemy by 1.3k. That on a group of 9 damage dealers can be a lot of extra damage. The reason why I have Biting Chaps on the bar is to get the passive from the Adric Spear tree, because we get 10% extra damage on our critical hits. So we have slightly more DPS, but it's basically irrelevant because this can be due to a better ping, for example, better rotation. And you also see I have lower crits than I actually should have, so if I actually had the right crit rating I would also have slightly more DPS. Now let's compare both. Left side is the one where we did not use Power of the Light, so you can see Rapid Strikes damage is slightly higher. That's because on the right side I replaced one Rapid Strike use with a Power of the Light skill use, right? And another thing, you also should see the max damage. So on the left side it's 10.2 and on the right side it's 10.4. That's due to the minor fracture which we got from Power of the Light, so all my damage did slightly more. Then another thing you can see is on the left side, Endless Hail, max hit 4486, and on the right it is 4457. So most likely on the left side I did a better job keeping the bow passive up, that's why it does more damage. Probably the only reason. You see overall damage of the bow abilities is slightly higher. But everything else, for example Rend 18.3k, and on the right side we have 18.6k. Now it doesn't really matter, but it's just like, so you do, like, I don't want to say let's use Power of the Light because we have a better DPS bars. To get the accurate like damage review, we would have to do approximately 50 fights each, and then kind of take the middle, like take all the damage numbers, divide them by 50, and then we have the average, right? So it's more, but nobody has time to do 50 runs each on a skeleton, I guess. So that's what we have to deal with. What I can say is definitely that Power of the Light. If you run a Templar, a Stamina Templar, it's probably worth using simply because you buff the whole group and not only yourself. I also do think, like, if I would have to optimize the rotation, which I probably will do soon, we want to keep it up 100% of the time. So we always have the extra damage through minor breach and minor fracture. Keep in mind, this is just the first test. I kind of have exams coming up, so I won't do a lot of testing this week, but once my exams are over, I will do a lot of testing and update all my builds, so we are ready for the launch. Anyway, that's basically it. If you have any comments or like ideas on what kind of gear combos you would use for a Stamina Templar or any class or any stamina setup, please let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching and have a nice day. Cheers.